All right, yo, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another YouTube video. For any of you guys that are new here, my name is Levi. Now, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about mental health and fitness, or in other words, how I was able to combat my anxiety and depression using fitness. It's funny, I didn't even know it was Mental Health Awareness Month until literally I got out of my car today to come record this, because I don't know, I guess there's no because, I just realized it. I got out of my car and I was like, wait, it's May. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. I don't know. They have a freaking different month for everything or something like that, or a different name for every month. But I do want to warn you in today's video that I'm going to be very straight to the point, and I'm going to say a lot of factual things that hurt people's feelings. I tend to notice that facts hurt people's feelings. So if your feelings are hurt during this video, don't take it personal. Just understand where I'm coming from. I'm very passionate about this topic. And so yeah, sometimes it's hard for me to say the things that I'm saying because I'm emotionally, I would say, affected by it. But at the same time, I understand it as a fact, and I hope you guys can too. Before we begin, I do want to introduce you guys to a different perspective on anxiety and depression. So I think we all understand that anxiety is a way for your brain to keep you safe, right? So if I'm out in the wilderness and I see a bear, right, I'm going to go, boom, boom, boom. My brain's going to go anxiety, 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 run, trying to find some cover. And if you are in that situation, hopefully you have a second person with you, because then you can just outrun them and then the bear can get them instead. But totally besides the point. I think we all understand that it's clear that anxiety is trying to keep us safe, as where people don't really think that way with depression, I don't think. And so one of the things that I've realized in my experience in watching behavior from other people and myself is that the main goal of both anxiety and depression is to literally keep you at a standstill, or basically prevent you from living your life, or in other words, they will run your life because they are ultimately trying to keep you protected. And here's a good example, or a real life example. So for those who don't know, I struggle with obsessive compulsive disorder the most out of anything, which is an anxiety disorder. And then I have a friend who's been on my podcast before named Ezra, who struggles a lot with depression. And one of the things that him and I were talking about one day is how similar they are. In other words, how they have the main goal of keeping both of us, I would say, in lockdown from doing anything. And so I found that very interesting. And so I kind of just came up with this, I would say, hypothesis that they both have the same goal of keeping you safe. I don't know, just a food for thought right there, maybe something to think about, a different perspective. But anyway, I have actually struggled with anxiety more than I would like to admit in my life, but I've never struggled with it to, I would say, the degree that I had ever since I had come back from Texas about, I would say, how long has it been now? Like a year and a half or so ago. And for those who've been on the channel for a while, you guys know that over a year and a half ago, I came back from Houston, Texas, all the way to Washington. And during that time, I was going through some other things. It wasn't just like a move that was going on. There was so much more other things in my life that were just very stressful. And during the midst of that stress, all of a sudden with it came anxiety, depression, and my development of obsessive compulsive disorder. And one fact I want to point out right there is that the reason I ever developed an anxiety disorder from that, or even experienced anxiety and depression through all of that, is because it was my, I would say, inability to cope with stress. That is, if not one of the main reasons that a lot of people's mental health is really skewed. So for example, someone with PTSD, they couldn't probably handle the stress of war going on. And so their brain developed this way of trying to keep them safe with, post-traumatic events that had already happened in the past that are now afflicting the future or the present. And so, yeah, it's your body's inability to cope. And I'm not saying that you're weak just because your inability to cope. I'm just calling it like it is. That's literally what it is. And a lot of people that you talk to that deal with depression or deal with anxiety, they went through a very traumatic event that was very stressful that most likely caused the anxiety and depression that they're dealing with. Anyway, let's get into how I was actually able to combat my anxiety and depression. So I do want to say that when I started to really struggle with these things, it was bad. I literally remember thinking to myself at points, it would almost be better to wake up, not necessarily dead, but it would almost just be better sometimes to be dead than be alive with how bad I was struggling with my mental health. That's how bad it was. It was horrible. I'm so happy to be here right now, even talking and sharing this with you guys, because I never would have imagined it. There was so many times where I thought to myself, is my life just going to be like this forever? Am I just forever going to be this hopeless, just anxiety driven, depression? Or in other words, like, is my anxiety and depression going to run my life forever? And I would say about, after 4 months of having those thoughts, I literally told myself, like, that's enough, because I had lived a whole life, prior to that, 21 plus years, where I didn't deal with that. Like, I never had dealt with anxiety and depression on that sort of level. And I do want to say, like, anxiety and depression are just natural instincts that we as humans have. Like, there are days where we do feel hopeless. There are days where we do feel a little more anxious depending on what's going on. But it's really bad when it got to the level that I experienced, or maybe some of you guys are experienced or have experienced. And so, like I said, after those 4 months, I was like, that's enough. That's enough for me, because in 21 years I hadn't struggled with it. So 4 months for me is too much. Like, I've never even struggled with it this much amount of time. So I'm going to get rid of it. Like, I'm going to take care of it now. And so I didn't know how to go about that though. But I had been reading David Goggins' book and seeing like some of the things that he struggled with. He talks about his mental health in it a little bit. And I started to notice this trend with people who struggled with mental health, but then started pursuing a lot of fitness things or very hard, difficult tasks that were very uncomforting. And it helped them a lot in their, I would say, attack on, defeating their mental health, or not defeating their mental health, but essentially not allowing their anxiety or depression to run their life anymore. So I figured, okay, I would follow something sort of similar. I'd follow a similar type of formula. And so I decided to sign up for a half marathon, a bodybuilding show, and a powerlifting meet, which I have recorded on this channel. Some of you guys may know, or like now maybe it's your first time ever knowing. But I did that, and the reason I did that is because I knew it would put a certain level amount of stress on my back. You might be like, well, you just earlier talked about, your inability to cope with stress, and like, that's anxiety, depression. And I want to explain really quick that in the body, or I should say in the human brain, there is a certain amount of stress that will actually keep you, active and keep you in pursuit of doing something. And if you have too little stress, like, there's no reason to take action or anything. But then too much of it is when it gets bad to like the anxiety and depression that I'm talking about. So there's like a happy medium of stress that keeps you active in pursuing things. And so I knew that thing, or I should say signing up for those things, would keep me at that baseline of pursuing something. And so with that pressure on my back, because there is pressure from signing up for something, putting your name down, knowing that they're going to call your name out at these events or at these fitness things, and then also just putting money down. Like, whenever you put money down on something, it's a little more stressful, and it kind of forces you to do something because there's money on the line for it. And so as soon as I signed up for those, everything changed. What I mean by change is, like, literally I felt like I got my life back. And I'm going to tell you guys how it affected my anxiety and how it affected my depression, or in other words, how fitness and doing those events combated my anxiety and depression. So I'm going to start with anxiety first. So the first thing that it did for my anxiety is it put me in uncomfortable situations, because the only reason I ever developed all the stuff that I did, the anxiety and the depression, is because it was, again, my inability to cope with stress, which is just being very, very uncomfortable at basically an extent that your self can't handle anymore. And so by putting myself in that uncomfortable situation, it made me get used to the uncomfortable situation, because it wasn't so uncomfortable I couldn't tolerate it, but it was uncomfortable. And so it made me, go, oh, okay, this is literally just a feeling that I'm feeling right now. It essentially taught my brain, like, it's okay to be uncomfortable. Like, it's okay to be put in positions where you feel uncomfortable, you feel like, things are, a little different than what you're used to. And so David Goggins talks about that a lot in his book. And I made a lot of references to him because he actually helped me so much to see life in a different perspective, especially with fear and stuff. And he talks about that a lot with, like, if you're experiencing fear, just go at whatever you're going at that's making you scared, because you will overcome it. And there's something in psychology they talk about, which is exposure response prevention therapy. And essentially it's basically going at what you fear the most until you no longer fear it anymore. That's what I have to do with OCD and like my thoughts and stuff, but totally besides the point. Also, one of the things too that it did, and this is very simple and straight to the point, is it just kept me focused, and it kept me like very, I would say, narrow-minded. So every time that I was focusing on like working out or whatever it might be for these competitions or just like my goals, it made me think more so just about that rather than like, all the stuff that was making me anxious or depressed. And the third thing that it did is it just made me confront life more, or in other words, like, it gave me a different perspective. Like, doing these fitness things and pursuing these fitness things despite what was going on in my life made me realize that it's not the circumstances that make life bad, it's your perspective on it. So it really changed my perspective doing these fitness things, because I realized in the pursuit of these fitness things, nothing had really changed ever since my move back, other than my perspective. You know what I mean? So like, I had been doing fitness before, but doing these fitness things and just like having a different viewpoint, because I was chasing something that, again, was putting pressure on my back, made me have these different realizations about life. And I feel like it gave me the power back because it changed my perspective. Like, now I understood that anxiety and depression was trying to run my life, and now I'm in control of my life. Like, I felt empowered again because of it. Now I'm going to switch over from the anxiety land of things over into the depression land of things. So one thing I do want to mention is that my anxiety really was the cause of, being diagnosed with depression. And the reason I say that is because my anxiety, I struggle mostly with OCD, which is an anxiety disorder. And OCD can make you feel so hopeless because of how like disabling it can be at times. And so it made me feel so hopeless that it was basically activating depression. Like, it was just making me feel so depressed because I felt like my life was never going to change, and that I was never going to, have the same life that I had for like the past 21 years. And so it made me super upset. And I do want to note that like, depression isn't just being upset. It's more than that. If anything, it's just feeling hopeless, feeling like there's no point in anything anymore, feeling really bad about yourself, and just feeling no motivation to do anything because you feel so hopeless. First thing that doing these fitness things helped with my depression was it allowed me to see little wins that I was starting to take again. So before my, life before, anxiety and depression, I didn't realize that the things I were doing were little wins during the day. And so by doing these things, I was like, yep, I got this out of the way. I got this out of the way. And so like, it gave me a different perspective because I knew I was struggling with something, and then doing it made me go, yes, I got it. Like, I did it. And so just seeing those little wins every day made me feel like I was empowered again. And it also made me feel a lot more confident, which is the second thing. Like, seeing those wins, and even the big wins after I was done competing and stuff, made me just confident in my ability, confident in myself, and my pursuit of things. Because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but a lot of the times people who deal with depression lack this confidence in themselves. Like, they lack the confidence to go forward. And it's just, I think it's a characteristic of depression, because I feel like if you ask someone who's depressed, like, do you actually feel this way about yourself? They would probably say no, but they say that they feel that way. And again, a feeling is not a fact. If you feel like a piece of shit, you're not a piece of shit. Another thing that fitness did, and taking these actions or these wins, whatever you want to call them, is it made me more tolerant to the feeling of depression, if that makes sense. So while I was pursuing these things, obviously the feeling of depression, and even for anxiety, this can count for anxiety too, but those feelings are trying to come back and hold me back, because again, they're trying to control me, right? And I didn't want that anymore. I wanted freedom from the control that they had on my life. So every time that they would come, I was able to ignore them better every time. Some days, yeah, they would win over me. But then I noticed, like, every time I get those wins over it, I would instantly feel better. And so every single time that it started coming, like, I could instantly just quickly just get over it. So that's literally how I was able to combat my anxiety and depression. I'm not saying you have to go sign up for a whole bunch of different fitness things, but just put pressure on yourself, a decent amount, not too much, but sign up for something or pursue something that you know is meaningful to you and is going to make a change in your life. Like I said, you need that certain amount of stress to basically, cause you to take action. That's why a lot of the times, I don't know if you guys have heard this, people with depression will buy a bunch of dogs because they feel pressure to take care of them. Like, who else is going to take care of them? And it makes them take action. And then those small wins, it's literally the same thing in a different setting or a different scenario. So one of the last things I want to say is that this is not a cure for anxiety and depression. And the reason I say that is because we're humans. And I literally told you guys in the beginning, I think, like, anxiety and depression are literally just natural human characteristics. So just because, you do all of these things that I'm saying doesn't mean that's going to go away forever. I'm literally saying that it helped to combat my anxiety and depression so that my anxiety and depression was no longer ruling my life. That's what the point of this video is. Like, I want to help you guys get control back on your life rather than anxiety and depression having control in your life. And fitness helped me so much to see, like, I'm in control, not my anxiety and depression. Because when I started pursuing a lot of things in fitness and having those little wins every day, I realized right then and there, like, this doesn't have to have a hold on me anymore. Like, all I have to do is not let them control or anytime I feel the feeling of depression or anxiety, it's just a feeling. I need to continue on with my life. The last thing that I want to say about anxiety and depression before I close out this video is a lot of you guys and a lot of people on social media who know me on social media would like to say I'm a mental health advocate. And I want to say I'm not a mental health advocate. I am a get help advocate. I think it's very clear at this point across the world that mental health is a big issue. But I think one of the things that government and a lot of other things ignore is, the help aspect, like getting help aspect and making it okay to get help. What help does it do for you to go,
oh, anxiety and depression exists?
It's like, great, awesome, it exists, I struggle with it, what am I supposed to do? It's like, go get help. And I think people need to advocate more for help rather than advocating for, just, oh, mental health exists. Like, yeah, we all know that, thanks. And I think I say that particularly to men because I know how hard it is as a man myself because I had to go get help. I know how hard it is, to have to go get help and feel weak because you're doing it. Maybe your friends aren't doing it, but you can't compare. Like, this life is your life only. I don't have an explanation as to why you struggle with mental health, but you have to do what you have to do, and taking care of yourself is the number one thing you can do. If anything, I think it's weaker to not go get help for your mental health because you're literally communicating to yourself that you're better than that, or you're just being prideful, and that to me is just very immature. So go get help if you're struggling. That's it. I would like to continue to talk about it in my personal journey, but maybe another time I would love to make a longer documentary on that because, I still struggle with it. I'm still, in counseling. I'm still getting help with SSRIs. A lot of my anxiety and depression is literally fueled by what happened in the past. And so just working through those past things is helping me too. But I felt that fitness really just gave me my life back. It really helped me to see the world from a different point of view and understand that feelings are not facts. When I'm pushing really hard in the gym and it hurts and I don't want to keep going, that's just a feeling. It's not a fact. It doesn't mean that I can't do it anymore. It just means my body's getting tired. That's it. But I'm going to close out this video. Hope you guys like this video. I don't know why I just changed up my accent. If you guys did, be sure to give you... When I do these sit-down videos, it just gets hard to talk sometimes for a long period of time, or I just can't talk. Yeah, I can't even talk, and my grammar's messed up now, supposedly. But that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys like this video. If you guys did, be sure to give it a like. If any of you guys are new here, do not forget to press that subscribe button because you guys know I will be back. And as always, without trying to be love, the sky is the limit. Take back your life, and I'll see you all in the next one.